So this is the kind of second launch day for this, which is the Boox Palma, and it doesn't have a fingerprint reader, so I'll just put my PIN code in off screen there. That is one thing I do immediately wish that it had, would be a fun fingerprint reader just here to the side. But well, I made a little short earlier on. I've already made my sort of first thoughts of this and initial review of it earlier on, and I am impressed by the quality of this. I don't know if you see that there. If I go here and swipe back, you'll see it clearing up the ghosting as it goes. And I've really started to get used to this, and I find it very difficult to go back to any Eink device which doesn't actually do that. I'm so used to that, what Boox call Boox Super Refresh technology, which is just a way that they use the GPU, which means that it is blisteringly fast essentially, and you get all of these new Eink modes on this device. The HD mode, suitable for reading, the balance mode, suitable for just about everything, to be honest, and that's the mode that I pretty much go in all the time. Fast mode, you do get some detail loss, but still in this fast mode, if I go to a browser, you will see it is still doing that wonderful thing where it's clearing out the white space after you get the ghosting. You can at any point do a full screen refresh and then it's all gone, but it's doing a great job of being this fast mode. It's gone back to balance, look. It's doing a great job of being in this fast mode. Super high refresh rate for Eink. No longer should we consider Eink to be totally slow. You see in that fast mode, can you see that ghosting just clear as it goes? As I said, I'm so used to doing that now. So what they've done is they've reissued this, and there's a really interesting comment immediately from the bold convict. Is it capable of replacing a phone just yet? Well, no, it doesn't actually have mobile communication. I'll talk about that later on. If not, I still think it's pointless. So why would anyone buy it? Well, people have bought it well, they made an initial run of this, and they have sold these out in their first initial run. So now they have reissued it. And Boox in the launch information there says they've actually learned a little bit from everyone's feedback, done a couple of updates. It's actually had 2 updates today that I've actually just run, and it is performing really nicely. Do I wish that it had the 5G connectivity, 4G connectivity at the very least? Yes, I do. Could it have had a longer battery life? Yeah, it definitely should have had a longer battery life, but that is the issue at the minute. It's a very difficult one. If you're a bit of an Eink aficionado, as I am, you appreciate the benefits of Eink so much, but one of the biggest benefits was the battery life. Now, I've been using this somewhat today, not much, probably for about, I don't know, a total of half an hour of sort of screen on time. It has done, to be fair to it, it has done 2 updates in that time as well, and it started out to this morning 100% charged. But it isn't like what you're used to on an Eink tablet, which would be 3 weeks or something, two weeks of battery life maybe, and that is not what you're going to get here. You're going to charge this probably overnight if you use this all day, and I think that's because you're going to be using the Wi-Fi. You're not just going to be doing normal Eink things like reading, although actually the single-handed reading experience is really nice, I find, on it, and I just think it's so pocketable, so nice like this, that it is just a real pleasure to hold and just read in one hand. It's sort of so natural in terms of its size because we're used to that phone format. If I compare it to something like the Leaf, great device obviously. I don't even know if it's got any power in it because I haven't used this in a little while. If I compare it to something like the Leaf, and I just solo this layout for a moment, then this size isn't that size that you can just hold in one hand. Where's the on button? There it is. This isn't quite pocketable in like a trouser pocket sort of manner. Yes, it's pocketable in terms of like, your coat pocket, it could probably go in. Absolutely. This is your sort of same size as a Kindle Oasis. Still a wonderful device. And obviously they've got the Page now, which has the Boox Super Refresh technology, this really clear screen, and this is the older technology here. But this device will last for weeks and weeks, just because all you'll really do on this device is going to be to read. So it is a different device. It is an interesting device, an interesting line. I said I'd talk about it. Why is there no 4G, 5G on here? Well, I think it's to do with licensing, essentially. Like, you have to have, in the UK and the US, you have to have a license to broadcast on this kind of mobile communications networks. And I think that's harder to come by for Chinese companies than it is for anyone else. And it probably costs a great deal to do that. So this is one reason why you rarely find a phone which is going to be sub sort of £200 mark that can actually be launched here. And that is because, I mean, buying it outright, I'm not talking about when you're going to get on a contract. That is because they have to pay a license to broadcast on these things. Now, first, I don't know if that's the only reason. All I've been told by Boox is that it's actually more difficult than it seems at first to actually launch a phone in the West which can actually communicate on the 4G, 5G networks. I think that's what's going on here. But what they haven't done is they haven't put the SIM card tray in and just left you to find out that it doesn't work. And they haven't said in the marketing, not once, that this is a 4G, 5G capable device. There is no SIM card tray in it, but there are devices that are marketed in the UK and the US that they say that they're 4G and 5G on the box, but then you put a SIM card in and it will not communicate on our networks. What I've tried to do to get around this, and actually tried both of these, I actually bought this little Jelly 2E, and I really like it as a kind of concept. This little Jelly 2 is this tiny little phone, and essentially that was my little mobile hotspot. You could buy something which is just a mobile hotspot, like, i.e. there's not even any microphones and things like that. But I actually tried using just this and this before I was allowed to talk about the Boox Palma, and I found, so I was carrying these two devices instead of my big Fold 3, which I really like the big Fold 3. It's a great device. I was carrying these two, and actually probably adds up to the similar sort of weight, really. But I just found that the Jelly itself was just such a difficult experience that I just had to go back to the Fold 3. And then I did try the Boox Palma and the Fold, and that was great. But again, there are certain things that you have to do on a phone. I was having to use this, and that was getting frustrating, rather than use this. I couldn't, for instance, use WhatsApp on here without putting my phone number in here and ascribe it to that. So WhatsApp would be my main messenger. I did, however, like doing all other normal sort of phone things on here. I got into Threads for a little bit and did a few posts on there, and I checked my YouTube studio and things like that, and I read things on there, which I obviously do on that on there as well. I even use the camera a little bit. I even watched a little bit of YouTube, and that works just fine, actually, surprisingly well. If I make sure I go to my own channel so I don't get copyright strikes for putting this in my live stream, which is always frustrating. I'll copyright myself. Actually, it looks really, really good for video, surprisingly good. And just for sort of, not for sitting and consuming the videos, it's not what I mean. I didn't sit and watch lots, but for the other YouTube things that I personally do, which is, responding to comments and everything like that, actually it's a really good device to do. So for navigating around YouTube, I responded to a lot of comments and things like that. Which mode am I in at the minute? Ultra fast, which is what you'd expect. And even for flicking through shorts or something, it looks really quite good. Okay, so what do you think? This is just, I just thought I'd pop up just to give you an opportunity to ask any kind of questions, really. So do fire away. Is this something that you're actually thinking about getting? Is there a feature that you want me to show? Then this is your quick pop-up live stream. Andrew's asked, I'm thinking about it as a pocket e-reader to go along with my phone. I'd love to take my little Kindle Paperwhite in more places, but it's a little bit too big to carry without a bag. Well, absolutely then. Absolutely. I mean, that's where it fits in probably. It's just that little bit smaller than the Kindle Paperwhite. Great device, but not trouser pocket sized. So that's your kind of comparison there, Andrew, if you're after that. If you want to see a comparison of the screen. The other comparison, by the way, is, I don't know if you saw how quickly the Kindle woke up there. I haven't had this Kindle open for a few weeks. It's just ready to go. straight back where you were. I never finished this book, and I really should. Because I just picked something else up when I started reading on a different device. It's one of those I kind of left it and forgotten about it. Anyone else read this this one? And so that's your difference in size. If I go back to Kindle, if you want to see a sort of side by side what the Kindle books actually look like, here I'll solo the layout again, and I'll try and match up the sort of screen brightness for you and color temperature. They both look great. I mean, the screens look absolutely fabulous. Eink do make great screens, let's face it. Yeah, so absolutely, that's your sort of size comparison. The normal paperwhite isn't much smaller than that. Sorry, the normal Kindle isn't much smaller than the Kindle paperwhite. So that would be that. If you wanted to see the Boox leaf as well, it's sort of similar-ish in size. It's a bit squarer than the Kindle paperwhite. Yeah, absolutely. Chuck it in your pocket. I think that's absolutely right. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Yeah, good thing. But yeah, this does not take that long to wake up. I mean, if I just put it to sleep, it's okay. I press it twice there for some reason. It comes back on a lock screen because it thinks it's a phone. And anything with Android, of course, you should put a lock screen on because it's attached to your thing. So it does come back pretty quick from its lock screen, but for starting up, it is a little bit of time. You also do get volume rockers, which can be ascribed to page turns. They are automatically page turns, I think, in the Boox reader, but they're not automatically page turns in other things. They're automatically volume buttons, but you can assign them to be page turn buttons in other readers. I mean, I just think the one thing that you don't get, and you won't ever get on here, is sort of in that space there, that ghosting there, those little stripes are on there. I don't know if you can fully see them. That bit of what is actually technically called image retention, that will not go away on the Kindle. Although it's pretty snappy, really, isn't it? Okay, that messiness will not go away, but that same messiness will be cleaned up here when you have the same thing. A bit of white space will actually get cleaned up. I can see a little bit of image retention there, to be honest, over time on the Boox devices at the minute. So you are going to get a bit more clarity on this device than on the Kindle Paperwhite, although it's not bad at all. How hard would it be for them to make a version of this that I could write on? Yeah, something else, Joe, that I've spoken about in my previous video on the Boox Palma was actually why not pop in a little stylus to, you know, I would personally, if I were to design this, I would make it slightly bigger. Excuse me. I would try and make it the size of this sort of Samsung Note lineup. If I were them, so it's ever so slightly bigger in terms of screen real estate is what I would suggest they should do. And then I would try and pop in a stylus pen like that. But if they were to do that, you know what, it would cost a fair bit more as well, because then you'd be paying for the Wacom layer and the Wacom licensing as well for this device. So okay, that's some points there. Any other questions? Oh, this is not going to be a very long live stream. I'm aware it's a funny time to do a live stream, isn't it? This is just when I had time today. Let's have a little look at the actual what's on the actual website as well for the Boox Palma, because if you go to the link in the description, it will take you to the Boox shop, and it's an affiliate link, but there is the new Palma there as well. So let me just present my screen. I don't even know which one it is. Screen 2, is it? No. Yeah, allow that. Okay. So this is the Boox Palma screen here, and yeah, unleash the power of mobile e-paper. You can have a little look in there, having a little look around it. It's got, you know, it's got the highest RAM of any Boox device actually, which is an interesting point. 6 gigabytes of RAM, customizable side buttons. So one of them is by default a full screen refresh. So this left one is a full screen refresh. You've got an off button and you've got a volume up and down, and you can customize them within the settings here, system navigation, side gestures. They're in there somewhere. Can't see them just now, but they are in there somewhere. Is it more? Volume buttons here, look, for instance. What does it do if you do a long press or a short press? There definitely is a way to customize that side button as well there. Anyway, I will leave it there. Water repellent design. Oh, the one thing, so phone-like experience they're saying, which is like saying that it's not a phone. I think the thing about that is that, you know, most of the time you'll be in your own house, or you'll be at work, or you could be in somewhere you frequent where you have a Wi-Fi network that you're normally on. And then when you're kind of commuting or moving between those places, then you'd just be using the offline stuff, the Kindle stuff as well. That's what I think about it, rather than think to yourself that you're going to actually carry around something specifically used as a mobile hotspot. Any phone obviously would do that. The thing about hotspots on your phone is draining the battery of your phone. It's using your mobile, it's using your mobile data, and it is also going to be connecting and disconnecting. You know, when you turn that hotspot off, you then need to go ahead and reconnect the phone essentially. So, or reconnect the Boox Palma to the hotspot, which I think that can be a little bit. You know, they time out essentially. If it's in your pocket, then the Wi-Fi connection will time out. And you wanted to do that in one respect because you wanted to save the battery, but in another respect, you want it to be able to just pull it out of your pocket and use it. In any case, it does have now that you can order it in black or white, and all of the options that you have to buy them, all of the options are including a protective case, which is quite cool. Okay, the white you have to wait a little bit longer, but the blacks are ready to go, and it costs $279 or €299, which is absolutely not cheap, but it is full of the latest that books have to offer in terms of the technology. It does have a Qualcomm 665 2 gigahertz processor with 8 cores, and it's got that excellent GPU renderer, which is doing that wonderful job of clearing everything up as well. And Boox are the only ones who are able to get this type of performance out of the Eink screens currently. Any more questions at all from you guys? It does have auto dimming front lights, so the top of it is a little sensor. And actually, when it's very bright here, I'm presuming that I've got them on auto. No, I didn't have it on. When it's very bright, it will sort of turn the things off, and when it is dark, it will increase the brightness. Sorry, I'm not showing you that one just yet, so I'll go back to this mode. So when it's really, really bright, then actually it will turn the lights quite a lot off. When it's darker, I'll put it in a bit of shadow, you probably just perceive the lights come up a little bit. I don't know if you saw that. It's not done much at all there. Yeah, if I leave that on, you should be able to see the slider. So now it's bright enough that it's just turned the lights right off. Darken it down. There you go. Now it's come up a little bit, which is all you want it to do, really. You just want it to go off when it's got so much light that you really don't need to be using the lights, and you want it to come on a little bit when it's dark. That's all you really want from adaptive brightness. Quite difficult to predict, isn't it? There you go. If I shine it towards the light, you know it's got a lot of light. This is a sort of mid-darkness, sort of mid-lighting situation I've got here. But in full sunlight, it would just turn the lights off because you don't need to run them. And it looks better, just reflecting all of that glorious sunlight, which is the benefits of e-ink. And not every company does it like that, because not every company bothers to recognize they've got e-ink. They just put in a normal Android algorithm for the lights there as well. So I think it's a great thing if you have your phone in your pocket, on your house or your work. I think it also makes you less likely just to doom scroll on Instagram, because yes, you can have Instagram on here, but you're less likely to spend time just scrolling through on social media, although socials do look good on here. If I go to threads, for instance, something that I was showing, you can see that scrolling on things is a very pleasant experience now on this Eink. Not even probably in the fastest mode, and fast rather than ultra fast. And you can change those settings and it will remember your settings. And I think that given this is the ultra fast mode, I'll come really close to the camera again. You can probably see that it's really, really fast and it's really, really clean as well. And that is where we needed the Eink to get to. Let's have a little look. Another question here from Martin. Do we think any Eink manufacturers are going to make a device with Android 11 or greater than 11 anytime soon? 14 is releasing soon, and I heard it had something to do with the processor. Yeah, that's my understanding as well, Martin, is that essentially if you look up this processor, if I go back to it, if you were to look up the processor, the Snapdragon 665, then you will probably find that is a good few years old, meaning that will be licensed to run Android 11 only on it. Now, the discussion with Android, so what happened with Android is that they have obviously the main operating system. Underneath the skin that Boox puts on top is Android, and the actual full security details, like in terms of looking after your Google account information, everything like that, that is actually sent from Google, and Google they give security patch updates for the latest Android, and generally it's 2 versions beneath that. It's not a hard and fast rule. They haven't ever said that. They say we'll support this version of Android for so many more years. So if you were to look up how long will Android 11 be supported, I think it's definitely a couple more years at least. Not seeing something on the straight off thing. It's still the second most common. Android 11 is still the second most commonly used one at this point. Doesn't say exactly when it's going to release, but it's still a couple more years with Android 11 essentially. I know 14 is going to be released, and what can happen is going to be easier for them to get a license for Android 12 once Android 14 has been released. And so I think you will see eventually an update just to keep it on whatever is getting the security patches. Obviously, there's no guarantees of that. That's what it's on. But basically, Eink manufacturers tend to use processors which are a little bit older than the very cutting edge, because you don't need the very cutting edge to run Eink at its very, very best. So will we see a more up-to-date processor, therefore a more up-to-date version of Android? I think we certainly will. In fact, I think it's the Scribe is already running Android 12. I think that's correct. I'm correct that there is definitely one of the big manufacturers which is currently running Android 12. And so that will just have a couple more years after Android 11 of security patches. That's not to say that at that point, you need to overly worry about your Android being attacked, but certainly you want to be on a version which is currently being supported. I think mostly you'll see that because Android don't want you using, Google don't want you using Androids which aren't supported for security, that they will allow updates to whatever is the sort of latest, whatever is the oldest that is still supported for security. So I personally don't think you've got much to worry about the whole Android 11, Android 13. I think it's right to mention it because I think we ought to put pressure on these Eink companies to actually give us the latest versions of Android. Absolutely. But I think that I don't think that you ought to be overly concerned about either that suddenly all the apps aren't going to work on it, or overly concerned that your security is totally at risk. Any more demos that you want to see? Anything else you want to ask about with the Boox Palma? What do you guys think? Are you going to get one? Is it worth that to you to have something in your pocket, something that you can pull out, something that's always with you in a jeans pocket, rather than something like a ordinary Kindle paperwhite, which isn't fitting? Part of it could probably fit in your back pocket, couldn't it? I suppose you've got big back pockets. Rather than that, you let me know. The first lot was really just for Boox fans. This one is a full release because it sold out so quickly. I think it was sold out in like 2 days. And certainly on my video, I've seen a lot of people saying, great, it looks good, but I can't buy these anywhere. So now you can, and there's a link in the description to do so. Okay. Well, that's me. As I said, I have tried my best to live without 4G directly on the device and go for something to give me a 4G hotspot. It didn't fully work out. I didn't end up carrying this everywhere. However, I know there are stories of people out there who have really found this to be a useful device for those reasons. And for a one-handed, very pocketable, very natural, very light, it's a really good e-ink experience, I must say. It really is. It really is good. It says what it does. It's got the obvious limitation that books aren't shying away from. They said straight up front, this is without mobile communications. That is in all of their information about it. They're not pretending this is a phone. I think it was personally intended to be a phone initially when it was first drawn out on the Boox, idea board when they were discussing it. Other companies have tried to make phones and they are launched globally, but they're not available in the UK or I think the US either. And I've thought about trying them, but I think that you'll get into problems when you try running them on our local networks, or they don't have the Google Play Store. Whereas Boox have opted for give you the full Google Play Store and give you access to any app, so you can use all these things, but they haven't been able to give us mobile communications yet. So I would imagine this time next year, I'll be doing a similar live stream about probably not even called a Boox Palma, but some type of Boox phone. And that would be the actual piece there. That would be the actual thing. That would be the actual direction of travel. I think that's the direction of travel they're doing. Really quickly then, I use iOS by preference, but I love how these screens work in pair. Certainly consider this. What's the battery life like? Not great. I said that at the top of the stream, but essentially, if you use it all day, you will probably pretty much drain it all day. I think it's got an all-day battery, which isn't great for e-ink. It's not great at all for e-ink, but that seems to be the trade-off. I'm very much hopeful that they can improve that with the next generation of, or by updates. You never know. It has just had an update, but there wasn't in the list of things that were updated. There wasn't anything about the battery life optimization in that. So I don't think that we're going to see much better battery life in the very near future. I think possibly the next time they release this, the tab lineup, I think that might improve on the kind of next device maybe that has this Boox Super Refresh might get around the battery issue. It's doing okay today. I found when I did carry it all day and used it all day every day for a couple of weeks, I found that I was having to charge it overnight, just like my phone basically. And then does it have an earpiece? Yeah, so you've got a mic, an earphone, a speaker just at the top there, and you've got a microphone at the bottom. You have at the bottom, you have one speaker and you have one microphone at the bottom. They both look the same, but one's a speaker and one is not. One's got the microphone in it. It's basically an ordinary phone type setup because the internals of this will be pretty much off the shelf phone stuff apart from e-ink. It has an earpiece there and it has a speaker there for media. So, or this is the more basic one, and this gives you the treble. So that's your quiet speaker for the ear. I've got more questions now. Only got a few more moments of this one. Wi-Fi, yes, you could use it with Google Voice or Skype, absolutely. But I just think, you want a phone, don't you? And you have to carry a phone. You can't in this modern world. I think you can't get away with just carrying this. I thought about a feature phone. This is like the smallest phone I could find that also had a Wi-Fi hotspot and full Android, and I like it. It's cool, but I couldn't not go back to the full Samsung experience that I'm used to, really, which was a shame. It was partly due to the screen refresh on that, by the way, because this only screen refreshes at like 30 or 60. And I'm just used to the 120 hertz screen refresh now. That was one of the biggest things. And although it's a tiny little panel, the pixelation was pretty poor, and there's a pretty poor little LCD panel. And I'm just used to this big and glorious OLED panel on here, which is just something entirely different. And So yes, you could use Skype or things like that, but with WhatsApp, which is what we generally use here in the UK, you have to have it linked to a phone number. That's when I'll buy it. Yeah, it looks incredible. Yeah, and I honestly think that Boox are just happy at this point to do kind of proof of concept and try and improve the UI and things like that over time. Yeah, self-service, absolutely. That's me. Pop a little stylus in the bottom, just for kicks, really. I don't think you want to do a lot of note taking on this type of thing. But what do I use this stylus for? And the one on my phone is just like things like shopping lists and that. Be nice to have that. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Tab Ultra C is tough a little bit. Yeah, that's I'm gonna go now, and I take my daughter to a club after school, and while she does that club, I'm gonna sit and write some of my next reviews. I'm finishing off the Big Me reviews now. I'm just writing all those, and I'll be writing those on the Tab Ultra C and its keyboard mode on my lap, in this sort of little waiting room. So that's, that tells you I'm currently testing out the S6 at work, but when I've just got to go ahead and do some writing in this afternoon now, I'll be using the Tab Ultra C. So it tells you all you need to know. See you all later. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think. Thanks if you're in the replay, let me know any questions in the comments and I'll see if I can answer you. Thanks.